Let's talk about the great Orson Welles. Now, while I was preparing for this episode, I realized I must be a pretty big fan because I had a lot of his films, more than I really knew that I had. And you're probably familiar with his more famous films, of course, like Citizen Kane or The Magnificent Ambersons, which I saw not too long ago. Really like this one a lot. His noir classic, Touch of Evil. Another noir exercise from him, Lady from Shanghai. You might even be familiar with some of his more obscure ones, such as Chimes at Midnight, or his version of Othello. Man in the Shadows. It's a Western with Orson Welles. He didn't direct this. He only starred in it. And I did an episode on this you might want to check out. And I also did an episode on another noir he directed, The Stranger, which apparently he didn't care for too much, but I think it holds up really well. But there's another Orson Welles film I had never heard of before, and that's the topic for today's episode. This is the Kazdoy Closet. I'm Kazdoy. That's my closet, full of all the stuff that I love. And today, an Orson Welles film I had very, very low expectations for. Was it better than I expected? Let's check it out. Today's film is Black Magic. It's from 1949, 105 minutes, beautiful black and white, and there's a lot of plot going on in this film, but basically it's a story of this character that Orson Welles plays. He's a hypnotist who becomes pretty famous throughout Europe in the 1800s, and he's seeking revenge for the execution of his two parents when he was just a little kid. It's based on a story by Alexander Dumas, who's probably most famous for writing The Three Musketeers. And in fact, at the very beginning, it starts with an actor portraying Dumas, and he's telling the story to his friend, played in a very small part by Raymond Burr, about the Welles character. And then we shift to that story, and then occasionally we hear a voiceover from this Dumas character telling about what's happening. It was directed by Gregory Ratoff, a director I'm not familiar with, but according to IMDb, Orson Welles was also the director, uncredited, and that is pretty believable, and I'll explain why a little bit later. So this film comes right after Lady of Shanghai and Macbeth, and then right before The Third Man and Othello. Now, according to the liner notes on this film, Welles would often take acting jobs to finance his own films, and apparently that's the case here. So he was mainly hired as an actor, and he took this so he could finance his film of Othello. Nancy Guild plays the leading lady. She's pretty good. She has a double role in this. She plays this very innocent, naive young lady, very pretty, who Welles becomes obsessed with, and it's sort of an unrequited love thing. And then she also plays a very cruel and evil Marie Antoinette. Akim Tamiroff, the pretty famous and great character actor. He was in over 150 films. He plays one of Welles's friends, and he was also in Touch of Evil. So overall, this is a period piece where we have very lavish sets, very complex costumes people are wearing, guys with powdered wigs, but then there's some elements of Gothic and Expressionism thrown in here, which is kind of incongruous for a period piece, and I think that's where the Welles influence comes in. So there are some surprising moments of unusual lighting, unusual shot compositions that kind of really surprise you and throw you for a loop, because it doesn't seem to fit in with this period piece. And there are also some painted backgrounds you'll see, which are kind of cool looking. They're obviously fake, but again, it kind of give a surreal look to the film. The music is very strong, and the music seems to come right out of a horror film, actually. Probably the main attraction in this film, of course, is Orson Welles, because he has such an incredible screen presence, and his acting style, to me, in films like this especially, always seem more modern and more natural than the kind of stiff acting that the other people are doing. He's basically an anti-hero in this film. He's somewhat sympathetic, at least at the beginning, because of what happened to his parents, how they were unfairly executed. But he becomes more and more vengeful and obsessive, and aggressive and even has kind of a god complex and very manipulative. So he's kind of sympathetic, but kind of not. At the end, there is a courtroom scene where he really chews up the scenery. He's defending himself against certain charges. There's this weird kind of eye motif that interspersed throughout the film. And I think this is a Welles influence too, where you see these floating eyes, because it's all about his eyes and how he's staring at people and he's hypnotizing them. So once in a while, you'll see the eyes kind of floating around in the background. It's kind of interesting. And there's also a scene where he gets to do a little bit of sleight of hand magic for this young boy. And you can tell he's pretty happy about doing that because, as you probably know, magic was a big interest in Welles' life. I'm going to give Black Magic 4 eyeballs out of 5. Eyeballs, of course, because of the hypnotism theme. It was much better than I expected. I think because of his performance and because of those interesting cinematic touches that I mentioned, I was pretty surprised at some of those, to be honest. So what's on this disc? This is a Classic Flicks disc, and there's no commentary on here for me to ignore. There are a handful of trailers, and that's about it. It looks really good in black and white, a little bit grainy here and there, which is no problem for me. But there are a few scenes here and there where it looks kind of washed out, like a white gauze placed over the sides of the lens or something. So maybe that was part of the restoration process. I don't know. But 90% of it, 95% of it looks just fine. It sounds fine. It's got a very tight aspect ratio, 4:3. I don't know too much about that, but I think that's the correct one, where it's a square picture. So you have black bars on both sides of the film. And where can you see Black Magic? Well, that is going to be a tough one because it's pretty obscure. I bought this when through Classic Flicks. I paid about $20. I think I would wait for a sale. You might be able to get it for $11.99. It's playing on something called Pluto TV, which I've heard of. I'm not familiar with what it is or not. But, keep an eye out for Black Magic. If you want to buy it, if you're a Welles fan, I suggest you wait for a Classic Flicks sale and to pick it up through there, unless you can find it for a good price through another vendor. So that's Black Magic. For Welles fans, if you're interested, I think you're really going to enjoy this one. Feel free to leave a comment or suggestion down below. Feel free to leave a thumbs up. Don't leave a thumbs down. Subscribe would be great. 10 more subscribers and we get to our goal of 350. Share this with your friends and neighbors. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. See you next time.